Well, good morning, everyone. It looks like the attendees are all filtering in, so we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Andrew Reinartz, and I'm the Community Development Director here with Art South Dakota. And I'm really excited to have everyone here, excited to have this great panel of past grantees and members of the staff of the South Dakota Arts Council to talk to you today about the Residencies for Recovery program. In particular, I'm really looking forward to this because it's not just about the grant itself and about how to apply, which we'll get some of, but it's a lot of what are some really good examples of community-minded, engaged art that this program is really designed to support. I think we can often get lost in the how to apply instead of the why we're applying and what are good projects. And so I'm really excited to have both Nicholaspulaski from Sisseton and Sandra Kern Mollman from Vermillion, as well as Rebecca Cruse with the South Dakota Arts Council join us today. First, I'd like to quick say a thank you to our sponsoring partners, the South Dakota Arts Council and the Bush Foundation. All of our professional development work, especially the online webinars, wouldn't be possible without their generous support. So during the course of the webinar today, if you could, please use the Q&A function to ask questions. We'll have all three panelists present and then do kind of a nice big joint Q&A at the end. And then if you want to ask questions of each other, or if you have any technical issues, please use the chat box. But if you could use the Q&A button for questions, that helps us track it. Otherwise, that's really all I have. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Rebecca Cruse with the South Dakota Arts Council.
Thanks, Andrew. So I'm going to share my screen here with you all. I'm just going to take a few minutes to walk through the grant program and the grant guidelines and application process here. And then we'll ask Nicholas and Sandra to share about their experiences with this grant. And then we'll take all of your questions, like Andrew said. And please know that if you're interested in applying for this grant program, you can reach out to our office at any time with questions you might have after this webinar, just to go over your plan or your proposal or anything that might be helpful. So as a quick primer here, the Residencies for Recovery program is something that we developed at the agency in response to the pandemic. We had funds that were delivered to the South Dakota Arts Council through the CARES Act and through the National Endowment for the Arts. However, those funds were required to go out to organizations. So we developed this program as a way to get artists working again. Every artist that was out working in communities and in residencies and touring programs were just getting everything canceled. Almost everything was being canceled. I'm sure you all remember in 2020. And so this was something that we designed so that artists could earn a living or earn some income during the pandemic. So the way the program works is grants go to organizations. The organizations use the funds to pay the artists. So our application deadline, this is our third round of Residencies for Recovery funds that will be doling out this fall. The deadline is October 8th. We anticipate announcing grant awards November 1st. We say anticipate because we're estimating how many applications we'll receive and how long it will take us to get through them all. So that is an estimated date. It could need to be pushed back a little bit or be pushed up a little bit depending on how many applications we receive. We believe we'll be able to award 12 grants based on the budget we've reserved for this program. The grants will be $8,000 each. There's no cash match required for this grant. The grant award date is from when you're notified of the grant and we get the paperwork out to you, and then goes through June 30th of 2022. So that's the grant period. And eligible applicants include the following organizations: nonprofit, tax-exempt 501c3s in South Dakota, nonprofit institutions of higher ed, units of state or local government, and federally recognized tribal governments. So if you have been eligible to apply for grants from the South Dakota Arts Council in the past, you're eligible for this grant program. If you don't know about your organization's eligibility, we're happy to help you figure that out. We have a resource page on our website. I can also share this link in the chat after I get finished here so that everybody can link directly to it, but it's also right at the top of our homepage. And then we're also going to do a water cooler chat session specifically regarding Residencies for Recovery applications on September 30th. So anybody who's working on an application can join that chat just to get a few final questions answered and go over your application with us. We'll have our staff on hand to help go through those. Okay, there we go. So a quick overview of the Residencies for Recovery program. The program is open to nonprofits and cultural organizations. The Residencies for Recovery is designed to create a space for the formation and activation of dialogue between artists and society. This program was designed based on the premise that artists are creative problem solvers, able to build community bonds using methods beyond the usual capacities and expertise of government entities. It emphasizes a place for art beyond the aesthetic as a way of engaging and addressing the challenges communities face. So what we ask applicants to do with this program is begin with a conversation among representatives of partnering entities. So this should include community members, organizations, artists, a local government agency, to decide on a broad population or challenge or a goal that the community wants to focus on. Then the group will hold an open call for artists, or maybe a specific artist is approached based on their knowledge of the particular issues addressed by the residency. Once an appointment of an artist is made, the artist will work with that committee in a research phase where they can learn about the problem and the community better. And then they'll hold regular meetings with that planning team and explain their own artistic practice. Then the artist will make a proposal for internal planning and public-facing participatory projects to be implemented with the lead and partnering agencies. So the majority of the Residencies for Recovery funds will be paid directly to the artist. $7,225 is reserved for the artist's pay. The remaining funds, $775, can be used toward administrative costs for the project. Residencies will last 6 to 9 months. We may allow some extra time for some applicants if they need it. So we encourage you to reach out and discuss that if you need extra time beyond that 6 to 9 months with our staff. We may allow an extension for these funds. The impact of Residencies for Recovery is creating a space for that reflection during this time of uncertainty and transition, a space for rejuvenation of ideas and progressive thought that connect South Dakotans with their communities and the world through art, and a unique opportunity for local and visiting artists to use their creative skill set to help address organizational and community challenges born from the COVID-19 pandemic in a productive manner. So the main goals here are to help with recovery in your community, and whether that includes one organization or several organizations, or a broader part of your community, or a certain pocket of your community, that's all okay. So we encourage you all to be creative and think of problems you can address. Project planning is what I went through, work with partner organizations to determine the challenge. We do expect, so we'll get your proposal, which is answering 4 questions that we ask of you. Although we fully know that once an artist is contracted to work on this, those plans will evolve. So at the South Dakota Arts Council, we're not going to micromanage these programs. We're going to anticipate that you'll address the challenge that you suggested you would address, that your partner organizations will continue to work on this, and that you'll carry out the project and reach the goals of the project. But we will not be, in there with the design of the project or anything like that. Grants of $8,000 will be awarded to the organization, to the applicant organization that is, which will then pay the artist. The hours and length of residency and payment terms will be determined during the planning phases, and reasonable proposals for that plan will be approved. As a guide, we suggest you use 150 to 175 hours of residency work, and then also allow the artist the same amount of time for their personal work while they're in residence in your community. If the residency includes more than one artist, then hours and payment should be divided accordingly. The expectations of the artist in residence are that they commit to a 6 to 9 month residency agreed upon during the planning phase, that they spend equal time dedicated to personal work and work within the program on a weekly or monthly basis determined during the planning phase, that they commit to public engagement, workshops, and presentations in a safe way, participation in program events and special projects with the community, and at least one public artwork, permanent or temporary, will be created with community members. Expectations of the sponsoring organization are that they organize the planning, programming, and assessment with artists and, sorry, I can't see my screen, with the artists in the team of community members, including at least one representative from local government, that they use our funds to pay the artist monthly throughout the residency. We don't want you to hold on to them and pay everything at the end. We want them to be having income every month. And then keep your records and receipts of payments using the grant funds. Provide workspace or studio space for the artist. If the artist is not local to community, you also need to provide reasonable accommodations or travel expenses. So for a workspace or studio space, it is okay if they already have a home workspace or studio space that they're doing their personal work in that space. But we do ask that there is also a public workspace where the artist can be working and viewed by the public, again, with safety parameters in place if there are concerns about illness. And so that the community can come by and observe what the artist is doing and how they work. We also ask for a commitment from a local government official. So this person can be elected, appointed, or a public employee. And just as somebody who has a stake in local government is part of the planning team and participates in the programming and assessment through regular check-ins with the artist and the lead organization. The application process is very simple for this grant. Don't have to use our online grant system, although many people are used to that now. What we ask is that you just you answer these questions in a Word document and email it to us, or convert it to a PDF and email it to us. Excuse me. The application deadline is October 8th. And we just ask you to answer 4 questions. Describe the main challenge you'd like to address as the focus of the Residencies for Recovery program. Describe the process for selecting your artists, describe the main partners, and tell us about the public official who will be serving on the planning team. And then you just email it to us, and we will review all the applications after the October 8th deadline. And that's the end of what I have. I wanted to share this fantastic picture of this fantastic mural at Racing Magpie in Rapid City. They contracted with an artist, Michael Tubles, who held community sessions, most of them virtual, I believe, to get input for what should be included in this mural. And it's completed now. He put it up on their new building this spring, and it's absolutely beautiful. So next time you're in Rapid City, stop by and take a look at that. Now I'm going to stop sharing so we can turn it over to Nicholas.
Hey everybody, I'm Nicholaspulaski. I was, well, my wife and I were recipients of this Residents for Recovery's grant. And I guess I could start sharing my screen here and tell you about what we did. So, yeah. There we go. So, yeah, we all know that COVID threw a wrench in the art world. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about, but it also affected everybody. And so this image on the screen here was at Memorial Park, just outside of Sisseton during the winter, this past winter, and it literally shed some new light on how COVID has affected the Dakota people of our area. And so each teepee was lit up to and a family that was affected from health issues, and unfortunately some people passed away. And and yeah, so it affected everyone. But getting back to the artists, so artists around the area were no longer able to go to show their work at art galleries, go to festivals, go to shows, greet with people. So we had to kind of think differently. And so this grant allowed us to kind of create a local network of artists. And so we would meet regularly via Zoom and just kind of listen and discuss and talk about how are we supposed to kind of showcase our artwork. And so one thing Alexis did was with these Zoom classes, he was able to kind of show various mediums of art and how to kind of hone your skills. And so there was kids involved, there was, you know, grandparents involved, and everybody in between, just to kind of get the community kind of stirred up about art and the fact that you can, you know, connect with people and create art and, you know, better yourself. And so she did several Zoom classes, and they were very successful, and just kind of a nice kind of feature of what you can do without having to go face to face during the pandemic, utilizing technology. So a project that I was involved with was, so these artists had to find a new way to promote themselves. And so what I did was I had a class that showed these artists how to take professional photographs of their artwork. And so with these digital files, they can make prints. They can use those digital files to start an e-commerce website. And I also showed in that class how to do that. And so, yeah, there's a image here of it's taking some photos of that was MJ Durhawk's one of her paintings that she did earlier this year. So another amazing thing that we got to do was get the community involved. It was acceptable to do so. So Alexis and I came up with a community-driven painting collage. So there's a local restaurant in town that is, they moved into the old cafe, Billy's Cafe, and they had just a huge open space, but no art to kind of make it lively. And you know anything about the Mexican culture, it's, you know, ensconced in very bright and vibrant colors in art. So what we did was design a kind of collage mosaic of these decorative tiles that you would see, and encouraged the community members to come in and paint these cool tiles. So yeah, we got kids involved. Just everybody just kind of came out of the woodwork, because it's just so fun to just kind of let your creativity go and, you know, finally get connected again, and do, you know, create art. So there's Alexis there with a bunch of kids having a good time. So yeah, this was at that same park from the very first image, Memorial Park, beautiful area, perfect for gatherings. Just a great way to showcase this art. And so resolution is kind of terrible, but so this was the final product at Tacos El Bahio. So Carlos was very happy, and so just kind of a way to kind of bring everybody together, showcase some public art, get everybody involved, and just kind of make this place a little better. So I guess all in all, not only humans, but my cat Arnie got involved with the project as well. Yeah, we just basically wanted to create Art Collective to kind of talk and work out everything to create, promote, and help our community through art by supporting local artists. And I guess one little side note is part of this grant is you need a commitment from a local government figure. And it just so happens that not only was I an artist, I got hired as the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce, Sisseton Economic Development Corp. And Promotion Board. So I got to work, kind of wear a few hats during this project to make sure everything went smoothly. And it was just an amazing, amazing experience. And I was so happy to be a part of it. Thank you, everybody.
Well, now we'll turn it over to Sandra Kern Mollman.
All right. Let's see, I think this is my PowerPoint. Can you see that?
Looks great.
All right, excellent, thank you. So thank you for having me here today to share my experience with the Residency for Recovery program. I served as the lead artist and organizer for the United Way of Vermillion. United Way of Vermillions are for our grant. My name is Sandra Kern Mollman. I'm a community-based theater maker, musician, and writer focused on how we use the tools of creativity to create the world that we want to see, a world that works for everyone. I have studied with and researched theater companies and artists worldwide to understand best practices for how artists and communities work together as a community-based artist, how we work together for arts-based community-led transformation. And this was my primary focus before the pandemic, and it remains my focus today. So where's my little, there we go. So when I first saw the call for proposals for the R4R grant in, I think, June of 2020, it seemed to match perfectly with a project that I had been looking into since October of 2019, when the Sojourn Theater Company reached out to artists around the country offering their production of the Race 2020 royalty free as part of their Race 2020 Play Festival. So the play asked the question, what do we want to see in a leader? What does your community need in a leader? With all of what was happening with the extreme fires in the West, George Floyd murder, COVID cases and deaths rising, and the approaching United States presidential election, it seemed a perfect fit. So I thought of reaching out to the United Way of Vermillion as a partner for applying for the R4R program, because they were also a perfect fit for the grant. They were a 501c3. So, but also because I know they are very supportive in any way they can be with community as well as artists. Their mission is to serve the needs of artists. No, it's not actually. Their mission is to serve the needs of people of Vermillion, South Dakota, and the rural area. However, they also, I'm very, very, very grateful for the United Way's recognition that the power that creative and imagining spaces hold in fulfilling the needs of the people in a community. So I approached the director of the United Way of Vermillion, who, you know, small town, rural world, happens to also be the mayor of our town, and to see if they would be interested in partnering with me on this project. And fortunately, she said yes. So we created a proposal to use the creative process of creating this play to explore how this moment of recovery from the effects of COVID-19 could serve as an opportunity to listen to the needs of the community and to discover new possibility. So our proposal included two separate phases. The first was the live production of the Sojourn Theater's 2020, Race 2020. And the second was responding to the discoveries that were made during the process of performing, reflecting, and creating this production. So with the funding from the R4R grant and part monies from the Bush Foundation's Change Network of South Dakota, we moved forward with the production of the Sojourn Theater's Race 2020. Artists, theater artists, and community members were gathered to form a company we called ourselves the Crumpled Paper Players, becoming one of 13 venues across the nation, across the United States, that were part of this Race 2020 Play Festival. So our process, the script itself was more like a score that provided structure from which we could build our own production based on the concerns of our artists and our community. The ensemble members brought their own words, images, photos, music, and history into the production. The rehearsal Zoom room was rich in conversation as we developed new understandings of each other. We used creative engagement to learn what was important to our community. And so the first bit of the community engagement was a thing called our Crumpled Paper Players Canistoria. We engaged 9 artists and about 120 plus community members. The Canistoria was designed by artist and USD Art Gallery Amy Phil, who created it was created and performed by Amy, Art Gallery employees, and myself. This part of the project served as a means to create engagement with the community, with the Vermillion community, to ask them the questions of what they believe their community needs in a leader. We performed for 4 Vermillion area farmers markets and Vermillion's Thursdays on the Platts music event the weeks leading up to the production. And the information gathered from the audiences and the experiences themselves of the Canistoria became part of the production. And I'll show you a short video of that really quick, if it Okay, so the Crumpled Paper Players, Paper Players Theater Company engaged 10 theater artists and performing community members and 137 plus audience members over 4 performances. As COVID remained a threat, we did not feel it was safe to gather performers or an audience in person. So like many of the nationwide productions in the festival, our production became a live Zoom theater experience. Our company members shaped the production and rehearsed for 1 month and performed 4 productions, October 29th, 30th, November 1st and 2nd, from our own personal locations. We had 6 actors in Vermillion, 2 of them professional actors, 1 a student actor, and 3 community members. We had 1 theater technician in Vermillion, 1 director in Vermillion, South Dakota. We also had 1 actor from Rapid City, South Dakota, and 1 professional actor who came and auditioned, and we all met, and we met for the first time, an actor from New York City as well. So paying the artists, why would this project not have been done without the R for Our Project grant? Without it, we wouldn't have been able to pay the artists, particularly in this moment. This amazing group of talented artists were paid for their time and producing this really beautiful, important piece of work. Many of the participants were very grateful, many commenting that without it, or that with it, they were able to pay rent, they were able to buy groceries. This was incredibly work in this moment for these artists. So much work is not being done because we have such little access to paying our artists, and what is available is often so difficult for artists to acquire. So the R4R helped provide this access with a bit of ease. Like Rebecca was saying, the application is pretty straightforward and wonderful. It would be great to make these types of processes a bit more permanent and to build on them. So quickly, some of the unexpected outcomes. One unexpected outcome was the Zoom was a creation of a community that included local, regional, national, and international participants of each production. Our audience came from all over the world, which was amazing. People came together 5 nights before the United States presidential election and were in conversation and in community discussing their fears and concerns and hopes of what the future would bring. So the audience members were from China, Nepal, Canada, Arizona, New Mexico, Missouri, North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Illinois, Massachusetts, California, Washington, Oregon, Iowa, and you see all of these names and more. But also importantly, they included rural America, urban America, and the suburbs. Our audience members identified as Democrats, Republicans, independents, immigrants, indigenous, youth, elderly, first-time voters, artists, academics, leaders, and listeners. And the list goes on. And this was a product of the moment. We never would have gone on to Zoom. And the fact that we had such a community of participants from so many places was pretty magical and unexpected. So the Race 2020 was an interactive theater experience that included video production, live theater performance, and choreography, company-led audience conversations in breakout rooms. They had moments of audience writings and drawings sharing on the Zoom screen and interactive chats. So this is some of the feedback we got when we early in the production asked the audience what they wanted in a leader. Here's some of the chat about 3/4 of the way through, people talking about their fears and their hopes and their concerns. The performance was followed by rich and quite emotional conversation. Audience members had broken down into breakout rooms during the production, where discussions were led by performers, and then they brought those rich discussions out of the breakout room and shared them as a community. Our initial thought that the Zoom room was going to be incredibly cold, distant performance and interaction. This couldn't have been further from the experience. Our audience members logged in from their own experiences. They were inviting us into their living rooms, basically, their kitchens, their bedrooms, backyards. And from the comfort of their own spaces, the conversations were incredibly raw and honest. So these are some of the audience responses. We can't really, I don't know if you can see them on here with people, but you know, the performance was really a safe space, place for people to engage in, to really think about where you stand individually, both sides, on needing to maybe take action, but also checking yourself in these crazy times. We had a lot of conversation. You'll see in one of these, it says, thank you to everybody for putting on this production, great show. I really appreciated that some of the points and views, the emotions that were expressed by the actors resonated with me. But the interesting thing in all of this conversation is that it was really, we didn't talk about who we wanted to be president. We didn't bring in any kind of conversation that was that directive. We kept the conversation on the needs and the concerns of the people, and it really became a rounded, multi-sided conversation all throughout. Let's see. So no matter where you were from or what you believed, fears were shared and reflected, hopes were affirmed and understood. Community was found in the most unexpected of diverse places and virtual spaces. And the actors, our Crumpled Paper Players ensemble, also recognized this was a surprisingly intimate and effective performance. Here we have, I might have skipped something. A rehearsal, here we go. Technology, I'm not so great at technology, and I ran a whole play with it. None of us involved in this production ever saw what the audience saw, which was kind of an amazing process in itself. We truly performed from our own perspectives, and what you might be seeing on the side here, all the actors and on rehearsing. Here's a space. The Zoom room, we came in from our own apartments, from our dorm rooms and our houses. This was the technician's setup right here. It looks like it's on a bed. That's how we also had the actors set up. Those of us in Vermillion without reliable internet, rural internet, ran the performances from a USD dorm. We were holed up in individual rooms on the fourth floor, which had been closed for this semester due to COVID concerns. And so, yeah, we all Zoomed in from peculiar locations. Really quick here. This is some of the responses from the actors as well, but I think I don't want to go too much longer here. So I will click over here to, you can look at that while I spew out some of this information. In total, through our entire project, we have engaged 27 artists nationwide, 267 plus audience and participants, local, regional, national, international. And for part 2, phase 2 of our project, we have are working on an anti-oppression and predominantly white organizations on the prairie conversation. And thus far as it engaged 10 artists and arts educators and administrators, 6 local, 2 statewide, and 2 regional. So when, while there's not immediate plans for the work to continue with from the Residency for Recovery with United Way specifically, the project has incorporated a number of partnerships that continue today, and the funding for these processes has enabled partnership building between each of the artists involved, the University of South Dakota Art Galleries, the Vermillion Area Farmers Market, Vermillion Theaters, Vermillion's Thursday on the Platts, Vermillion Public Library, and other organizations, and the anti-oppression and predominantly white organizations on the prairie workshops and discussions will continue to build upon what the participants have discovered. And very last but not least, through the creating and preparing and performing and reflecting on the experience of the Race 2020, and in that time since, one recurring understanding has surfaced to the top, and that is kind of counterintuitive to all of the yelling that might be happening, but there's a strong need and desire for raw and honest conversation around oppression and our region. People are coming together with heartfelt questions and concerns for each other and how we can create better communities. But the arts, as both imagining spaces and creating centers, play a vital role in this exploration and creation of a better world. That's the end.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm just getting back to gallery view here. Well, thank you. This was really exciting. I mean, you know, in addition to just the wonderful work, I love that for all these projects, it seems like it has really spurred additional partnerships and other ideas, and it's kind of a seed that seems to have grown into a lot of other projects as well, which is always really great to see that it's not just here's this little thing, we did it, we're done. It's opening up larger conversations and larger projects. Well, we've had some good Q&A come in, and please feel free to continue throwing your questions into the Q&A or reach out to me in the chat if you have any concerns technically. A couple of kind of maybe process questions first, probably for Rebecca. From Christina Roth, they also applied for an NEA ARP grant for one program in the organization. Are they also eligible to apply for Residencies for Recovery for a separate arts program?
Yep, you sure are, whether you're applying for ARP funds from the National Endowment or from our agency directly or the Humanities Council, you're still eligible for these Residencies for Recovery grants. They just do need to be a separate residency program.
Then, you know, this is actually maybe a question for all three of you, but from Danielle Turner, she had a good question on public art a little more generally, you know, for especially maybe for any of these that are permanently placed, you know, who typically pays for any liability insurance once the art is ready for permanent placement? So in particular, if it's a public art piece like a statue on city property or you know, a public building mural, she's asking, are you seeing the city add that to their insurance policy, or does the organization itself typically take on that responsibility? Nicholas, I think in Sisseton, the public art projects you just did with Roundabout, those are all now just owned by the city, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. So the city takes the kind of the brunt of upkeep, and I'm assuming the insurance and everything too. I want to say actually there's in a public park we have a fence mural that I think has to go through our Sisseton Arts Council for the insurance on that, but I'm not 100% certain. Yeah,
And
100% on that, but yeah, I would talk to your city for sure, and I assume they would know the at least the right direction on where to go for more information on
And the nice part, as someone who is not in insurance, I'm not a doctor, whatever the qualification I need to make, but I know for some of the things Art South Dakota has done, it's very, very different, but often our liability insurance is a fairly broad blanket where, if your organization is already doing public events with some liability insurance, oftentimes tagging on some of these things won't affect your insurance too much as long as the organization has some policy. Cool. Okay, great. Thank you so much for that. Now, this is a question maybe kind of for everyone's a two-parter. I'll ask the first part first, but how do artists connect with organizations that are applying for these grants? So if you're an artist, you have some sort of a residency idea, kind of how do you go about that? The first thing I would say that Nicholas kind of alluded to, that they worked closely with the Sisseton Arts Council for these projects. And I think if you have some sort of a local community arts council, that's the first place I would check. Just because oftentimes those are very good partners. But I mean, Sandra, you could probably speak pretty well to this because you approached the United Way, and how did you kind of why them, and how did you start that process?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that so the way that I did it, like I said in my presentation, I had a project that kind of felt like it would fit really well, though I didn't know that that's what they would want to do. And so I did approach them with that. Again, as a community-based artist, this is the type of work that I do. And that is one of the reoccurring realities, is that we have to go out well before we have any monies, usually, to find people who are interested in participating in this different way of doing art and doing art for different purpose. And having said that, for us, the United Way was a perfect match for, again, the reasons I said, having their involvement with the community and their concerns with the community. And really, we're a small town. Everybody has their hands in wanting to make things better, work better for each other. And this seemed like a really great opportunity to do that. I think that I still approach organizations and have since this grant. And I do try to come up with a bunch of different ideas that I can present to them and say, if you're interested in going down this road, it's hard, I think, being an individual artist. It's not hard to approach them so much, but we finally get a project idea. We go up and approach them, and then they have to apply, and then they have to be either turned down or accepted. And so, some of this there's a lot of timing issues that we have to kind of help each other figure out, I think. So yeah, it is a great thing. There's so many places, though. I always think about going to places you wouldn't otherwise think of for why community outreach is important. The libraries are amazing places to partner with, any of the community service or organizations, and even the government, local schools. There's so many places that you can really develop a project with, and thinking outside of the box of, you're not necessarily going to get everybody together to like paint a thing or to, create a piece of work, but how can we use our creative processes to help the community explore their own community engagement and other outcomes than having the art itself or even the art process itself. And that's where community-based work has its really, really, I think, most power, is when we use our creativity as a tool to connect all the other dots.
I think too, sorry, I got a little echo there. This is a more, sometimes we do some of this with some of our advocacy work too, where when you can often, when you can approach someone with, hey, I'm helping you solve a problem almost, like for a way, in a way, this is a very, this is the least, idealistically enjoyable conversation to have, but going to an organization and saying, hey, I've got this great idea. If you write the grant and administer it, you get to keep the administrative money and have some funds for your organization. You know what I mean? So it's almost like, hey, I've got this great idea. I need your help making this application. And by the way, you're going to come out ahead too. Sometimes that can be just enough to entice someone. It's the least, it's the least enjoyable one to do, but sometimes that can open the door and at least get someone to go, oh, okay, I'd like to hear a little bit more, because every, especially arts organization, we're all, underfunded and understaffed and overworked. And so sometimes that's another good way to approach organizations, I think. Rebecca, a quick question. The second part of the question from this Q&A that was sent in is, can the grant funds go towards childcare? So I assume that would be the funds paid out to the artist to do the work that they're doing.
I mean, the funds are for the artists to, their payment to the artists. So artists are obviously allowed to do whatever they would do in their normal life with what they get paid from those funds. I was a little confused by that one. So if it meant like some direct costs for that, there is just that split for, if that was a part of a project that was offered, that $775 that is administrative for the organization could be used for anything like that associated with the project, but the rest is direct payment to artists.
Great. Now, this is another sort of larger scale question for all of you, and Rebecca, you may have some good insight on this, but from Danielle again, is any recommendations on gaining the support of the city? They're working on something and says that she's getting just a little bit of pushback.
Yeah, maybe we can ask Danielle to elaborate a little bit, because my answer and strategies would change depending on what the ask is of the city. I think probably Nicholas and Sandra both have experience in this too, to maybe add in their 2 cents. But certainly depending on what you're wanting of the city, the ask would be different. We currently have 2 buffalo statues. And what do you want to do with the buffalo statues?
I think the new line accidentally sent instead of finishing out the typing. So I'm sure she's still typing away. But maybe while we're hearing from Danielle, how about Sandra and Nicholas? It's always an interesting partnership, but any insights from the work you've done?
I guess from my end, we have been blessed with, I think, just kind of a perfect culmination of an arts council that has been always active throughout the community members that really enjoy art in every aspect, from theater, public art, music, and also the city administration that wholeheartedly supports it. We're kind of a town where we're not too small where we can't do things, or too big where we've got too much red tape to go through. I think it's just kind of a perfect culmination. And I'm not sure what would be the best approach to just keep connecting with organizations. If you have, various, not just an arts council, maybe some community based groups that can kind of all join together and say, hey, we really want this done, please help us. Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. So, I can share a little anecdote about the roundabout projects in Sisseton. And when those were getting started, was that the Jane Rasmussen, who is one of maybe even founders, but certainly one of the leaders at the South Arts Council, reached out to me at the state to say, do you have any idea about how we would get in contact to figure out if we can put sculptures in those roundabouts? And, I have a friend at Department of Transportation. I contacted her. She told me who I should talk to. And then we just set up a meeting with that person and sort of went over the logistics of, here are the permissions you would need, here are the things we should all cover. It was really a great conversation just to sort of get everything down on paper and figure out the right people to talk to, the approaches to take to do that. So having somebody at that state level who could just lay that all out for us was really helpful. And then I do know that they had to have several conversations with the city because the state was turning over management of the roundabout, landscaping or care to the city after they were finished being built. So they did have to have some conversations and build a relationship there. I think it took a while to make that all work out. I'm not sure where the insurance falls, but I assume with the city, the city policy and government policy would mean that anything on that public property is automatically covered. There really shouldn't be, if there is space that the city allows you to place sculptures on, and you turn over ownership of them to the city, it should just be covered under their general policy anyway, unless they have something strange written into their general policy. So certainly I think you would be able to find friendly city council members to start the conversation with, who would be really interested in this. There's a lot of documentation about public art and public art policy out there. I can certainly share direct links with you if you want to reach out to me, Danielle, but if you look on Americans for the Arts website, they have guides for public art. Also, the National Endowment for the Arts has some great public and rural art guides. So there would be some great strategies in there, but feel free to email me if you'd like me to send you direct links for that information. And even if you want to just have a conversation and kind of go over this, and maybe I can help do some strategizing.
Great. And then, one other just real quick thought here is Danielle was further elaborating that some of it is based on the potential insurance concerns. Once you get those quotes, I might check with either a local chamber, or if you have if there's a strong tourism group presence in your community, or if these are going to be out front of a couple of prominent businesses that will get some good foot traffic. You might be able to do, even if the nonprofit is going to have to cover the insurance, you might find some partners that are willing to collaborate with the nonprofit to cover things. Great. Well, I think we've answered all of the questions. Everyone did such a good job that we had some really good questions there, but not as many as I had kind of expected. So thank you so much to everyone joining today. Thank you to Rebecca Cruse from the South Dakota Arts Council, Nicholaspulaski from Sisseton, Sandra Kern Mollman from Vermillion, and thanks to the rest of the Art South Dakota team, who I know are on but behind the scenes watching to make sure everything looks good from the audience perspective today. So please reach out to us anytime with any ideas for either future webinars, or if you have any questions. We will be sending a recording of this session as well as the slides, so that you have all of that for reference. You'll be able to find upcoming webinars and past recordings at our website at artsouthdakota.org. And please reach out to us anytime and keep doing amazing creative work all around South Dakota. So thank you all again, everybody, and I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.